House right now here at 6:30. We're taking a look at some of the biggest issues facing lawmakers this legislative session. Tonight, we're talking about childcare. That's a topic we've been following closely with federal funding now setting to expire for a lot of people. Danny, you've been following this very closely. Childcare front and center for lawmakers.
Yeah, that committee, the joint committee, is going to be looking into just really ways to kind of fix this whole thing. They're looking at some recommendations for legislators to make in this upcoming session. I do want you to go ahead and take a look at this map. I'll even zoom in a little bit here, closer on Greenville. Now, the gray, that shows an adequate amount of childcare here in our area, but all of this orange, and as I zoom out, you just see that orange really kind of overtaking our screen. That shows the scarcity that we see with childcare here. Now, accessibility is the main thing legislators are looking at, so more parents can get back to work, and that's going to help the state economy. After that federal funding for childcare providers fell off this fall, the Century Foundation estimates South Carolina could see nearly $6 million less in state income tax, and that's because without more childcare options, well, some parents are having to leave the workforce. But some other factors include affordability and the quality of that childcare. Now, the Joint Committee was supposed to meet before the end of the year, but I'm told because of sickness, that second meeting, it was rescheduled to happen once the session starts.
For me, I think the biggest concern that I hear is the access. There are too few facilities, so obviously that drives up costs, which also decreases the ability for families to use it even if they can access it.
And that's just one of the big topics being discussed about childcare this legislative session. We could also see some changes to the rules and regulations for childcare providers. And for some of these providers, this could be the first regulatory change in about 30 years. Specifically for at-home daycares, every 3 years, the Childcare Advisory Committee meets reviewing the regulations for childcare providers, all providers. Well, these positions are appointed by the governor's office. And right now, regulations are waiting for the legislature to review when that session starts. DSS says a lot of these regulations are just things already being looked at by the department, but DSS says formalizing the regulations makes both at-home daycares and daycare facilities have more similar standards.
Those regulations, I think it was the 1990s when they were last implemented, and they just didn't have, it was a lot more for people opening facilities. It didn't go into the more health and safety and the ongoing day-to-day relationships that the teachers have with the children. There's information put in there into the regulations about safe sleep, having consumer safety products. We've added information about reporting incidences that happen within the home childcare facility, no corporal punishment, or some of those. We put in some regulations about emergency preparedness.
And while making the regulations, the advisory committee hosted some town halls getting input from providers who work in at-home childcare. And Courtney Johnson, who you see here, she opened her doors about 2 years ago, and she says she attended one of the town halls, learning what changes she could see.
I understand the purpose of the change. I think overall, with the many regulations that family child care has from DSS, it is more of a safety precaution. It just puts the children in the center of the regulations.
And some of the other regulations include safe feeding for infants, indoor and outdoor space requirements, and the temperature of the space. Well, Johnson says the regulations are changing, and they're also serving another purpose here, putting at-home daycares really in the spotlight so people, families, can see if this is an option that really works for their situation. According to DSS, if they do decide to adopt these changes, we could see them take effect as early as July or when the session ends.
All right, so we got the committee, possible legislation I'll be tracking. One of the many topics we'll be tracking this upcoming legislative session. Again, we are covering them all for you right here on the 6 o'clock news. Tomorrow, Government Master will be announcing his budget recommendations at the State House, and we'll have full coverage right here on the 6 o'clock news.